Hi, welcome to Food Sleuth TV. I'm Melinda Hemmelgarn, registered dietitian, and I've got two great guests on with me tonight. We've got Dr. Sandy Raccoon and Dr. Matt Folks. And we have an ethnographer and a geographer, and we're here to talk about the Missouri Hunger Atlas. And I'm really interested in this project because as a dietitian, I'm very interested in hunger. And what you've done is you've looked at the state of Missouri, is that correct? And you've looked at pockets of hunger and meeting the needs of the hungry. So if you don't mind, I'll call you Sandy.
That's great.
Sandy, tell me how this project got started and why you did it and what it is exactly.
Okay, it's a bit of a long story, but actually Matt and myself and Joan Hermson, who's a sociologist, and Nikki Radicki, who's a dietitian at the university, we did a project for the Central Missouri Food Bank where we interviewed about 1,300 food pantry clients. And we were trying to get information for Peggy Kirkpatrick and the Central Missouri Food Bank about their clients and their health status, their use of programs and so on. And at the end of that, Peggy asked us a very reasonable question. Like, what are we doing well and what are the gaps in what we're doing? And we realized that there is no county level information in Missouri about where numbers of hungry, where are the hungry congregated in the state, how many people in X county probably suffer from food insecurity or hunger and should be participating. They had great counts of how many people used a pantry, but no idea of how many people ought to be using the pantry. So we looked around and trying to answer Peggy's question and discovered, there's no census of hunger in Missouri. There's no county level information on numbers of people who are food insecure. There's no number, we know how many people get food stamps. We have no idea how many people are eligible for food stamps and don't get them. Mm-hmm. And so what the four of us decided to do was to identify variables, measures of two things. One is the extent of hunger around the state and on the county level. And then the second thing we want to do is not just be able to tell you where were the highest percentages of people hungry, but how well were we doing in terms of public and private programs, especially public programs, in meeting these needs. So it's what we call performance. So we have produced this atlas that uses about 28 different variables. About half of them measure the extent of hunger around the state on a county level, and then the other half look at performance. How well are these counties doing given what their needs are in terms of eligibility for WIC programs or school programs? How well is the county doing in terms of participation? So we do that on a county level, and we actually come out and say, these are the counties that have the highest need, these are the counties with the lowest need, these are the counties that are performing well in terms of participation, these are the counties that aren't performing. And it's really the first tool of this kind, not just in Missouri, but actually in the U.S.
That's fantastic. Now tell me what your role is as the geographer in this group.
Well, as a geographer, my role was to make the maps, but really this, as Sandy stated, this was actually a four-person team, and I like to think of our roles as swirly. We both in that way.
Absolutely.
We all kind of had multiple roles, but definitely as the project evolved, I think was the person who was responsible for modeling some of these variables that we present in the atlas. Not all we present a mixture of variables or data, and some of this data comes from state agencies, but some of this data, there's just no data for it. Like, mm-hmm. For example, food insecurity, or hunger. There's no Department of Hunger. There's no statewide collection of this data, so we had to model this data, and certainly the team contributed to our methodology, and then essentially I was the one who had to execute that methodology. And so that was my role as kind of the lead, modeler on the project, and also the lead cartographer, I would say. But I think, I really want to emphasize this was a team project, and Sandy and I are just two faces of it.
Well, that's wonderful.
Not necessarily the best looking.
Right.
Well, I'm really interested, first of all, I should say that I should explain to everyone that the USDA no longer uses the word hunger, right? You're food insecure. But I always like to say it's a rose by any other name. It still means that you don't have enough resources to put food on the table. And in particular, I always look at the nutritional quality of food that's available. And, we can fill bellies, but can we nourish our community as well? And that, of course, is a whole different issue. But I'm very curious to know about the individuals that you interviewed who were using resources. Why were those people food insecure? What were the reasons why they didn't have enough resources for food?
Well, we have these two projects, and so with the food, we did, before we did this project, we did a survey of 1,300 food pantry clients.
Right.
Where we actually interviewed people.
Right.
You can kind of answer that question.
Okay.
With the Atlas, we didn't really interview individuals. We're pulling together these massive data sets.
Sure.
And creating these data sets that go from here
Right.
to here. But, if you're talking about why are people hungry, and if
Right.
that's your basic question,
Yes.
you have to talk about poverty.
Right.
Poverty in the U.S. is the best predictor of hunger. And if you had a map of Missouri, and you could identify all the persistent poverty counties in the state, you'd expect them to be mostly in the Ozarks, in Boot Heel, a few up in the northern tier of Missouri, up near Iowa, St. Louis City, of course. And if you then want to look at the extent of hunger around the state, it's pretty much going to mirror where are the heavy pockets of poverty around the state. And if you've got a county where there's a lot of poor people, you've got a county where you have problems with access to food. And in the U.S., it's not, of course, the availability of food generally, it's the resources to buy food.
Right. And I always get a little upset when people try to label individuals in hunger. Well, they're lazy. They're not working. And is that what you found? Did you find that most of the people who needed the resources were indeed not working because they didn't want to work? Or were they not working because there wasn't work? Or there was work that didn't pay a living wage?
Well, actually, I think it's a generally people were working. And I think it was at least 1/3, if not, maybe it was 40% of the families. And again, this was done in the Hunger Atlas, the earlier study,
Right.
had a working individual in the household. And so generally, it was living wage issues. It's also the stability of employment. This is a big issue where people would, their employment would be interrupted because they'd be laid off, and so they'd have to get another job. So, working at one job for a year versus working at 3 or 4 jobs for a year are very different things.
Right.
And I think, back to your question of why people were hungry, it's, these families are balancing multiple pressures. They have the heating costs of their homes, and of course, related to poverty, if you're poor, you're more likely to live in a home that has significant issues. Maybe, it leaks a lot of heating treatment. It might be a seed in a sense.
Right.
And so, the electrical bills that people are facing were immense. Other people were in very tenuous rental situations, so they're essentially what we call residentially insecure, which is related to food insecurity. And some would argue they were borderline homeless, where they would move quite a bit because of these poor housing conditions, overcrowding. There's obviously issues with hunger, but stable employment, housing, adequate housing. And these issues, and just utility bills and gas prices. Of course, gas prices are down, have declined a little bit, but still they're higher than they were for the time.
Yeah.
And we even ask people, are you balancing? Have you had to choose between eating and going hungry and these things? And those responses were overwhelming. The number of people who were making tough choices. Of course, I forgot to mention medical care. Of course, that's the.
Of course.
And so hunger is part of this larger picture, and so people, you could say that people are hungry by choice because maybe they're paying for those other things, and so it's really And if you can imagine towns with children, it's a choice that no one would want to have to make.
Exactly.
So it's very difficult.
I want to know what you found in terms of where is the need the greatest, and then where are we meeting the need, and how are we meeting the need?
Yeah, it's a good question. So in some ways, explaining where the need is the greatest is easier because it follows poverty lines around the state. So counties that have the highest levels of poverty typically have the highest levels of food insecurity and hunger. And going back to the USDA, I entirely disagree with their re-terming
I agree with
these
you.
phrases, so I use the old terminology.
Good, let's do.
Next, we'll be calling the poor, less rich.
Exactly. I totally agree with you. Yeah.
Sorry, a little editorial. So, the map in here that shows relative need. And the only way we can compare counties like St. Charles and Shannon is by percentage of people who are in need, not by numbers of people. So these are all comparisons of percentages. Well, the counties with the highest percentages of need are, by and large, in the Ozarks, in the Boot Heel, St. Louis City, and then there's about 6 or 7 counties up by Mercer and Putnam and up in North Missouri. And the counties with the least amount of need, percentage-wise, are the suburban counties around St. Louis and around Kansas City and in central Missouri. Okay, not unexpected. And then we look at, in terms of performance, basically we're measuring how many people who are hungry are eligible for food stamps, now called SNAP.
Right.
You can call it food stamps.
Right.
How many people are eligible for the nutritional supplement program of WIC? How many children are eligible for free and reduced lunch programs? Primarily, we could only look at the public programs because there is no good data on all the private programs. The only private programs we could look at were food banks. And there we looked at how many pounds of food were distributed per county by the food banks. Okay? So we put all that together, we get that to model and mix it up all together. And what's kind of interesting is kind of good news and bad news thing. So the good news is that a lot of the counties that are high in need have high percentages of people who are hungry, are eligible for food stamps. They have very high participation rates in these programs. So in Missouri, some of the highest participation rates in food stamp programs are in the Boot Heel and in the Ozarks. And we can talk about why those counties are probably doing pretty well, at least in getting people into those programs. The most alarming thing we found is a pattern in these more affluent counties, what you think of as the more affluent counties around St. Louis, in mid-Missouri, near Kansas City. Okay, so there we have counties that have lower levels of hunger. It may only be 10% versus 20%. But we're talking about a very large population base. So that 10%, first of all, is an awful lot of people, okay, who are hungry or eligible. And then what we find is participation levels, performance levels in these affluent counties are usually the worst in the state. In other words, if you're poor or hungry in St. Charles, sorry, I'm not meaning to pick on St. Charles, but in that area, or here in Boone County, or over near Clay County, you're much less likely to be getting the help you need than if you're living in Shannon County or a county down in New Madrid County. Those folks who are in need down there are more likely to participate in the programs than the folks who are in the suburban counties.
Why is that?
That's a good question. Do you want to take it first?
Well, we don't actually, that's one of the questions that lead from the study that we're very interested in, is this, there's spatial variation of hunger-wise, and there's a spatial variation in what we term, performance, which is meeting those needs. And, we've presented this around the state, and we've bounced this off a lot of different people, and there does seem to be a sense that in suburban places, which is where we found this gap between, essentially low performance or not meeting the need that's there, just big in quantity, if not in percentage. It is maybe due to the nature of poverty in suburban areas, and the nature of poverty in suburban areas, many would feel is more hidden. and there are more maybe stigmas attached with participating in programs. It's a very different experience, I would think, in some ways, to be poor in the boot heel, in living in a county with a poverty rate that exceeds 20%, versus, maybe in Chesterfield, which is, very, a fairly affluent
Right.
suburb of suburban community of St. Louis. And I think, the feedback we've gotten, and we like to speculate that it's because, people in Chesterfield there might be more pressures in living there. They may not know where, for example, where the food pantry is, because
Right.
they don't know anybody else, or they don't think they know anybody else who's using
Right.
it. Maybe poverty is something that you keep hidden. And I know when we presented this atlas to the St. Louis Area Food Bank, and what was really interesting is that after we were done with the presentation, many, and these are mostly practitioners, social service people, who came up to us and said, there are, a ton of people, and this is pre-crash too,
Right.
a ton of people who are living kind of shell games. In other words, they have their house still. Again, this is pre-crash,
Right.
and they have their SUV, but they're going to the food pantry. They're coming to us, and no one knows. And so,
Wow.
this is just one possible reason, and it's not something we studied, so we can only speculate based on what we've read
Right.
and what others have told us.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. If you're living in a community where most people around you are sharing in that poverty struggle, then you sort of can network and find out, well, where did you go to get food?
Mhm.
Versus if you feel isolated, like you're the only one that's struggling.
Right. And, in fairness to the state, I think that what we hear sometimes is that the state knows here are large pockets of poor and large pockets of need. We have limited resources. Of course, we target our resources where these larger sets
Sure.
of needs are, and they're visible.
Right.
And so people would say, well, if you live in X county or X city, there's a food stamp office every so often. If you live in, Warren County, there may be two in the entire county, and again, people may not know where they are. So I think we've, in some ways, done a good job targeting resources toward the most obvious and visible parts, and maybe we don't think about and see this more hidden
Mm-hmm.
poverty that's in the more affluent suburban counties, which is definitely there,
Right.
but it hasn't perhaps received the same amount of attention, and the counties themselves, don't necessarily want outsiders to think of them that way, so
Sure.
they may not go after the same kinds of programs as well. There's
Right.
all kinds of reasons. We've heard funny is not the right word, horrible stories,
Right.
where schools, for example, how do they implement these programs? Well, in a particular school, unnamed in a fairly affluent area, they maintain separate lines for the children that get free and reduced lunches and those that pay for their lunches.
That's hard on kids.
It's impossible, kids, especially when, it might be a minority of children that are
Definitely.
going to the free and reduced line and they don't want to single themselves out.
Oh,
And then if they've gone
absolutely.
from one line to another, they were paying and now they've lost their jobs, they're not going to be very likely to switch lines, especially when we're talking about junior high and high school.
Oh,
kids.
horrible. That's right. I
So
think.
those things still happen.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's really tragic. I think what happens many times is children will choose not to eat if it means having a stigma attached that they're not rich enough to buy their own meal. That's a very tragic story. One thing that we didn't do is we didn't define how you define poverty. How do we say this person is poor versus this one isn't? What is the definition of poverty?
You had that. You did.
Okay.
Well, the definition of poverty is based on, as you probably know, the USDA's, food budget.
The market basket.
The market basket, yes, and then it's multiplied by 3, because it's based on, rather antiquated, studies that show that, that food should be 1/3 of a family's budget. And then, of course, there's then the poverty rate, and that established the poverty threshold. And I'm a little embarrassed because I don't actually remember what it is currently. I think it's 21. It depends, of course, if you're talking, there's poverty thresholds and, poverty levels, and so there's a simplified poverty threshold is just based on the number of people. So then this amount, of course, because your market basket depends on the number of people in your household, so it's multiplied by 3. And so you can get poverty thresholds for each number of person's household. There's a more complex one that actually differentiates, whether it's children or adults in the household. But we use this basic definition of poverty, just like we're using the USDA's definition of, though not their terminology, of food insecurity. And the reason we did that, poverty is a very contested notion. There's books and articles written about whether poverty is undercounted, whether poverty is overcounted. We put this, measure benefits and all these sort of things. But as researchers, I think we're trying to make a useful product, and you're kind of bound, however imperfect, to the definitions that are used. And so we just stick with the federal poverty thresholds, all caveats and qualifications.
And of course, to receive reduced price lunch, you can be, you're above the poverty line by a certain percentage. So that just shows you how far it goes, and that's not very far.
Well, did you see in the paper that Missouri has reached this threshold, recent threshold that was announced that 2 weeks ago, that 1 million Missourians are probably now eligible for food stamps.
And this is the post-crash. We were talking
This
about
is
post-crash. So now we have a whole new set of issues. So it was bad before, and now it's gotten.
It may be a 20% increase over 2 years ago. I mean, the number of people 2 years ago was 700,000 people, which is still incredible. It was 1 out of every 7 or 8 people. Now it's 1 out of every 6 in the state is eligible for food stamps. And Missouri has one of the highest participation rates in the country. So it's an incredible need in the state, and it's an incredibly expensive program that's necessary.
Right.
One of the reasons we used, we're really excited because this is what we would call a smaller scale analysis, and it's county level. And it just hasn't been done. And the reason it hasn't been done is that the data just is not collected on the county level. That's why we had to model certain variables. But it was twofold. One is to actually kind of have this finer scale maps of where hunger varies, but also it was a bit of marketing in that part of the goal of this is to provide tools for social service agencies and agents and lawmakers. And when we were kind of dreaming up this project, we knew that if we could produce something on the county level, people understand the county, and lawmakers know counties.
Right.
And when you talk about a problem at a state level, I think it's very easy for all of us and lawmakers to just sit and policymakers say, well, I live here and I know that's a problem in the Boot Heel, but not really in my neck of the woods.
That's a brilliant approach, really.
And when you put it down to a local geography, it becomes more personal.
Right, it's in my backyard, and I never realized.
Yeah, and so that's part of the intent. Using smaller geographies can be an effective, rallying cry, I guess, or an effective way to get people to care about this issue.
I think that's a brilliant approach, really. And I think this could be a national model. How nice that Missouri, it's sad that Missouri has this kind of data to begin with, but it's happening all over the country. And how nice to be able to say, look, here's something that works. So the next question is then, how has it been working? What was the first year that you did this?
This just came out last year, our first one.
Your first one.
Exactly a year ago.
Have you seen any policymakers using this to make changes?
Absolutely. If policymakers on different levels.
Right.
We've been really gratified that we've met with Claire McCaskill on the efforts. She has it, and she's taken them back to the various delegations in Washington. We live in a state where luckily, beyond Senator McCaskill, even Congressional Representative Emerson from,
Yes,
from
yes.
Southeast Missouri, very concerned about hunger.
Right, and has been for
Her
years.
her husband, before he passed away, was also very
Right.
concerned. So, so they've gotten the word. We've been asked and have done briefings for legislators down in Jefferson City. Which probably had the most impact is in some ways on a more local level. So the Harvesters Food Bank in Kansas City has been using the information in this atlas to construct a rural task force on hunger that addresses rural issues in the counties that are served by the Harvesters Task Force. It's being used in a lot of places as kind of a fundraising tool, frankly, to show the extent of hunger in their region or in their county in order to solicit resources into their area. The Kansas City Food Policy Council, which is just a brilliant program that's going on in Kansas City, is using the atlas. So in essence, it's a resource guide for a lot of folks who are considering, where are the problems, what can we do, how shall we organize ourselves. So some people use it for fundraising. Some people use it to organize task forces. It'll be used this June. There'll be a summit on poverty in Jefferson City, and one of the main tracks will be on hunger, and this will be the primary tool that will be used in order to develop policy recommendations.
And with different stimulus packages available, I can see that really folding nicely and to see where is the need and where can we go with that. We have probably a minute and a half left, so I want to give each of you a chance to, today, maybe I missed a question. Is there something you want our listeners to know about this hunger atlas, or maybe an action step?
So anybody who's watching can go and look at their county or look at the maps and see it. And I think just that hunger is in your backyard. It may not be as much as in another place, and that it's something that we all should think about, and try to alleviate if you care about social issues. Hunger is such a part of that.
One thing that we haven't talked about, which surprises me a little bit, is the relationship between hunger and health.
Yes.
And although it's not a major part of the atlas, we do pay attention in this atlas to county level data also on obesity, hypertension, and diabetes. And I guess my message is when you're talking about hunger, you're talking about people who are losing income due to job absenteeism, because if they're hungry, they're more likely to be sick. You're talking about children that are having developmental issues in school and performance issues in school. The expense, basically, and the cost from a physical, from a psychological, from a mental development point of view are just immense.
It's all connected.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we're not just talking about food, we're talking about health.
Exactly.
And everything else.
Everything. We are out of time. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. We'll have to have more of your team back. There are many issues regarding hunger that we must address as a compassionate society. So thank you again for watching. Check out the resources online, and thank you.